Yeah, like the growth is there. There have been new skills added to like my resume or whatever. I've learned a lot, and even on a personal level, the fellows are brilliant. The connections I've made, the networks, the UFP, the Urban Fellows Program gives you access to. All of that has been a net positive in my opinion. The fellows are brilliant. All of them are like it's a really good bunch of people, and they are in some sense the most spectacular part of the program. The people you get to interact with, work with, live with, and also party with. So all of that is the good parts. Absolutely. Like the Urban Fellows program is not a classroom based program primarily. There is a lot of work we do on the field, on site together as a group, as teams. And like even when making something as basic as a presentation, the amount of knowledge somebody with a design background would come up with would open up new doors to somebody who's not from that background. And while you're on the field, the same phenomena is seen in very, very different ways from somebody who comes from a spatial background or to somebody who looks at it, from an economic or political angle. So all of those things combine, and the amount of time we have to engage and interact with each other before coming up with a final output in whatever sense really adds to our whole learning experience, and also it also shows in the output we've brought forward, all of us. In a sense, yes. If you look at how the commons are structured, they attack the urban from many different points, right? From identity to things like as technical as planning, and then from things as essential as economy and governance to something as broad as ecology, which you can't study in the urban alone. It's part of a larger whole. So it is interdisciplinary in that sense that it invites people from all backgrounds to come here, sit together, and then study things from all possible backgrounds. So there's a lot of knowledge you can gain from each other. There is a lot of knowledge you can gain from the course itself, because no matter who you are, no matter how much work you've done, you are not experts in all six commons, or you haven't looked at things every possible way. So it's always something new to learn, no matter what class you're attending. Well, the interactions do not just end at the classroom. You always have the scope for office hours, which you can opt for, or you can spend as much time as you want with the faculties at scheduled times of the week, and you can go and it doesn't. There's no limit on what you can talk about. You don't just have to talk about the class or your professional career or anything. You can talk to them about anything under the sun, a cricket match you saw, how you're feeling in this new city you're in, or how you feel about the city back home once you've started the program, once you've learn certain things from the program about how to apply or what not to do. So it's a very good experience, and otherwise also they're very accessible. You can always write them a mail, or you can meet them in the lounge, you can meet them outside, and it's always good. So you get a lot of time hands on with the faculty. They come over, they spend a lot of time with you, not just at the beginning of the program when you're kind of settling into the new city and the program, but even towards the latter stages when you're very neck deep in projects and assignments and also your internships. They're very hands on with helping you out with your fellowships and your internships and your job prospects going forward. So there have been cases where faculty members have shot down an entire holiday to spend 12, 13 hours with fellows, taking calls one after the other. And in this one instance, Sudeshna even forgot to have lunch, and somebody had to pull in a little half an hour block for her to have lunch on her Excel sheet. So that is how involved the faculty is with us going forward from here. So yeah, so it's just very good in that sense. So because I came here with some amount of work experience, so a lot of it was already settled, and then I also had a master's in a particular field, so I was like, let's say, more experienced about certain things, but it was still a very good learning opportunity. So the skill labs were amazing. So QGIS is not something in my line of work, something you would get to work with on a very frequent basis. Even if a project requires you to work with it, they will always make sure they hire somebody else to go and get that sort of work done. But to get hands-on time with the geospatial lab and spend all that time with them in class, and the advanced skill lab as well. So now I can say that at least beginner or intermediate level of GSL knowledge I do have at QGIS. So that is like a net positive. And even about so even soft skills like presentations. So it's something that we've all done basically all our lives. But coming here, working in a team with people with design backgrounds, so it just helped you learn better. And like I can say with a lot of confidence now that my presentations now look a lot more sharper than they did before the program, because of just because of the internal learning I've had with my own cohort. And this is not even anything to do with the faculty. It's just things we've learned from each other, how to structure it, how to, like, what shades of color to use, what looks good where. So it's just been a net positive. I mean, yes, that's one of the best bits, that all 40 of us live together in the same building. So we're all open and accessible to each other. We all, eat together, sleep together. We come to BCC together. We leave together, and it's a nice bond we've all developed, where we know where the other lives. We know everybody's sleep schedules. We know when they wake up, when they'll be around, when they'll be eating, when they'll be doing whatever. So it's very, it's the companionship we've built over the past 7 months is really, really good. It makes me internally very pleased with the kind of friends I've made here. And in addition to that, the whole system of all of them living together. So the living quarters we have provided, they don't just remain your living quarters. They become sort of a workplace also, because a lot of the work we do for things like our projects or practica, or a lot of the presentations we make, all happens there. So like BCC, we only have 6 or 7 hours a day. The rest of it is like back in stanza. So like in that case, it does help to have everybody around all the time. So you can call on anybody at any point of time. So yeah, it's good. The fieldwork based component of the Urban Fellows program is probably the best bit. So you get to go out of the classroom, explore the city on your own, explore different cities on your own. So for the exposure visits, we went to Bombay, and we went to Tirunelveli, and we went to Tiruchirappalli, and they're all very different cities working at very different scales. Things work very differently, and it was just good to apply all of our knowledge we saw here in trying to understand everything on ground in a lot of different cities. In Bangalore, we had a lot of time put aside. We had 3 months for practica, we had 3 months for project work, and both of them, in my case, were field-based exercises. So for practica, we spent 3 months roaming around North Bangalore, Thane Sandra ward, and it was a very nice experience to get to know some place you're literally living in at that depth. And like we were divided into 6 groups, and every 6 group saw something and problematized something very, very different, and came up with very different solutions to whatever they saw. And even with field work, so for my project, I've spent the last 3 months covering and trying to study KR market and how the market works. And that has been really, really interesting, because it's one of the oldest markets in southern India. It was based off of Hawks Market in Calcutta, and I spent a lot of time in Calcutta during my childhood. So it was a very nice linear connect between the two of them, and just getting to know the city at that level. Because for a lot of us, if we come to Bangalore, you do not necessarily spend so much time on the ground trying to understand everyday issues, like, is water available, is food available, is electricity available, how are the roads, what do you do in the absence of these things. So for two different sites in the same city, trying to see them at that level and try to understand that, like, we can very confidently say after the program that we've seen a lot more of Bangalore than a lot of people who've been living and working here for many, many years in that matter. So yeah, so the fieldwork based bit was, in my opinion, was the best bit. So the current project I'm working on is called Rethinking Off-Grid Cities. It tries to look at the infrastructure and food nexus, and the site of study is the Krishna Raja market in central Bangalore, and it's one of the oldest markets. So what we're trying to study there is to see how, with the development of the new market building, what sort of infrastructural problems the vendors are facing, and how, in the absence of gridded infrastructure in terms of electricity, water, and parking and transport facilities, how do vendors cope in the absence of these infrastructures? So we've been on the field for the last 2-3 months. We've conducted 30 interviews. We've mapped out the stakeholders. We've spoken to BBMP officials. We've spoken to people from the Bengaluru Smart City Limited, and there are a lot of stakeholders involved. So we made it a point to cover as broad a field as possible, do as many interviews as we can, and just try to see how a city market actually functions, despite the state trying its best to make it function in a particular way. Market systems find their own way to survive. I'd like to continue with research, but I also am planning to move towards consultancy eventually, and that is where my immediate focus is right now after the UFP. So the internship I have is at ID Insight. It's a data and governance based consultancy, and like I plan on working there and learning as much as I can to further my career in that respect. And for those things, IIHS as a whole and the Urban Fellows program has been really helpful towards pushing me in that direction. And like I had multiple conversations with Gautam, and he's really been, repeatedly he's been very helpful about it, and he's like specifically pointed out that how consultancy should not remain this box where all the corporates live. We need good people to go and work there as well. So always keep it an option and go there if you really want to. So yeah, for that matter, that is the place I see myself in the next couple of years.